Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. This is another episode of Where Are They Now? And I'm really excited for the guest that I have on today because he was number 9, the ninth episode that I'd ever done of the Dad Up podcast. He was number 9. It was an audio version only. And he and I have been friends for that long. It was back in 2020. We were friends longer than that. But my good friend, Mr. Brian Covey, has joined me on Dad Up. And I'm really excited about this. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Dude, I'm excited to be here. And I was crazy. Number 9, I was joking with you, Ronaldo's number and all the things. We haven't met in person, but this was a conversation the other day of how you build friendships. And this is one of those things, I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit about, but people should always just think about you're building relationships and you're getting to know people. I feel like I know your family. I'm keeping up with your health journey and you're encouraging people. And, the world has changed a lot. And so I'm honored, my friend, because you're a great example. You're showing up for the dads of the world. And I know we share that passion of making this world a better place, one dad at a time, and encouraging each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's so crazy that we have never met because, like I said, I feel like you and I are like really, really good friends.
Yeah.
And if we walked into each other, it would be like we'd, always seen each other, but we've never met. And that's the beauty of, the social media. And especially since COVID and all that kind of stuff, this kind of platform really blew up. But I'm really excited, looking forward to one of those days, getting an opportunity to meet. My wife and I were just in Tennessee last summer, and a month or so ago, maybe a month and a half ago, we were in Tennessee. And how far away are you from Nashville?
So we're south of Nashville, just 30 minutes. So we're like right here in Franklin. I think we were out of town when you were coming through,
Oh, are you?
probably kids sports, we'd be on some soccer trip somewhere, I think is where we were, but we were gone.
Okay, because yeah, we went down to Nashville to check out the strip there, Broadway, and all that,
Oh yeah.
and hitting all the. I don't drink, but really enjoyed hitting all the little bars and watching the bands playing. Those bands are like, I'm surprised that they don't have contracts because they are phenomenal. But
Some do, you just don't know it.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly. But I'll tell you what, anybody that hasn't been down to Broadway in Nashville, it's a definite must. You must go. It's crowded, it's crazy, but it is a lot of fun. And you don't have to be a drinker. I am not a drinker. I don't drink alcohol, and you don't have to do that in order to have fun. My wife and I had a blast for a couple of days. Had I known you were 30 minutes away, or had you been in town, trust me, we would have made it happen. But
Yeah.
we will do it again one of these days, and we'll either catch you out there, or you'll have to be out here in California where we can catch up. But very, very cool. A lot has changed, my friend. A lot has changed, not only from the where my show has gone, but where your show has gone. Even your career path has changed. I know that you've changed companies over the last 4 years. I know that you've had your kids have they have grown immensely over the last
Yes,
four
they
years.
have.
You've got some things going on in your world. So let's talk about that. We don't have to dive back into kind of your back history and all this kind of stuff because I encourage my listeners and viewers. This is a Where Are They Now? So I want you to go back and watch the episode, or I say watch. It was an audio only. So go back and listen to the episode before you're watching this one to kind of get an understanding of who he is. Brian's he's very successful in business. He's an author. He's a dad. He's a husband. He's big in his faith. And not only that, he's a former professional soccer player, and he still plays soccer to this day, but keeps in shape with his health. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate, but he's a good, well-rounded dude. And if you go back and listen to that episode first and then watch this one, you'll see what I mean. So let's kind of touch base. Where you been these last 4 years, brother?
Ooh, what a whirlwind, man. Like when we were starting, and I got to give you a shout out because I was just starting my podcast. You were starting your podcast. You were doing the audio only. I was fumbling through and I look at some of my first episodes and one of my good friends now, Renee, was one of the first ones. Like we had such technical difficulties. I was failing forward, as they call it. And I share all that with people is no matter where you are, you think about 4 years from now, where do you want to be? And dude, you've stayed committed. You've inspired all these dads, like all these people that you and I have connected with, where I'm like, okay, like I know them because of Brian. And then now and people ask me about what podcasts for dads. And I go, you got to listen to Dad Up. And your consistency in what you've done, I think it's just a testament to people. Now you've done that in your health and everything there. And dude, I've been the same. 4 years ago, I think about when I was at Loan Depot, we were going through what was arguably the best and worst of times, right? Like
Mhm.
you think about everything getting shut down and there's this whole side of what was happening. Like We don't know what's going to happen next. We're not sure, this uncertainty, fear. What are we doing working home? We've never worked remotely before. And our team, several hundred people that I was, fortunate enough to lead, we're trying to just figure it out. And we're trying to work through this. And then all the while, rates are dipping at such a fast pace, and you're trying to keep up with capacity in the mortgage business. And people are buying homes left and right and refinancing, and it's chaos. You're dealing with it all. And all that I think back to, that was some of the best lessons I've learned in my 20 plus years of how do you deal with chaos as a leader, as a dad. I'm home with our kids. I'll never forget, Brian, that March when things really got crazy. We'd gone on spring break down to 30A, people that know, and the panhandle of Florida near Alice Beach, all this kind of stuff. We're there with our family and our 3 kids. And Nicole and I are like, they're not going back to school. Like everything is shut down in March. I'll never forget, we're like, okay, we got to kind of figure this out. What are we doing with remote stuff? What are we doing with their health and fitness? And there's this picture that always stands out to me is all 5 of us are just sitting in the driveway, and we'd done this family workout. And I'll never forget, because like, man, this is going to be a time that I think we're going to remember. And in all the chaos, I remember that moment, and that picture stands out because all that mattered was being there with my bride, being there with our 3 kids, being there with our family, and just being together. And I think some people have lost sight of what that brought about and got back into the hustle and the grind, and they just didn't really get the lesson that I think what we took out of that the last few years was priorities, alignment, how you're living them, and your standards that you live. I learned more, Brian, in that year to 2 years than I would tell you probably the decade before. That's crazy to say, but I realized I was out of alignment. My health was good, but it wasn't great. My relationship with Nicole, good, not great. Relationship with my kids, good, could be better, right? And for everybody listening, I'm sharing all that with you because, wouldn't it be great if you could just start that today? And part of what I learned is living much more intentionally, which led me to, not long after that, a couple of years later, we took Loan Depot public, CEO did all these great things, went public, things changed. I was given an opportunity to kind of more of a startup company. And I knew that was the time, in alignment with my family, that I've got the tools and skills. I'm going to go bet on me. I'm going to leave the big corporate world. And as scary as it was, that has been such a journey. But I'll tell you, Brian, all through it, family, faith, fitness, financial discipline, and all that, those are the things that we've just gone back. And I'm still learning and growing, still to this day.
Yeah. We as dads know that we will always be learning and growing. At least we hope to be learning and growing. And I think back to those times too. And one of the things that I often think about is the struggle that people faced. And I don't like to talk a whole lot about the pandemic, but the struggle that people faced, really wondering how they're going to get through life, or how they're going to get through their job, making money, all those sorts of things. I get that struggle. And on the flip side, I see, yeah, it was a nasty disease. It was going around. No one wanted to get it. Everybody was scared of everybody. If somebody sneezed the wrong way, you thought, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world kind of thing. But I really believe that God did have a hand in that, and he wanted to get us to slow down a little bit. The world was running so fast, and we were so busy and so preoccupied on everything else that we were missing things that were happening around us that were super important. And for me, that meant missing things with the family. Like, you're a busy guy. You're constantly running. Nicole's busy. She's constantly running. Your kids are busy. They're constantly running. But what were they missing? They were missing a really tight bond family of love and relationship and commitment and togetherness. And I think that's one of the things that the pandemic brought to us, is making us, hey, you need to slow down and look what's around you. And back then I used to, some of the dads that I coach, they say, but like, my son doesn't go out of the house, and he can't go out of the house because of the pandemic. And all he wants to do is sit in his room and play video games. And I don't know how to break him of that habit. I know he can't go outside, but what do I do? And I said, slow down, relax, play video games with him. Maybe that's what you need to do. Hey, you can put a limit on it, and you can make sure he's doing other stuff too that are important. But why don't you sit down and play video games with him and grow that bond? Because you have no other thing to do than do that. And the second that the front door opens and he's able to go outside, he's not going to want to hang out with you anymore. So that really had to make us open our eyes. And that's what helped me as a dad and a husband. And obviously it sounded like it helped you as well. The
Huge.
commitment though, man, the commitment that you had to make to not only yourself, but your family, especially when you're changing direction in your career is scary. It's scary. They say no reward without any risk, right? You've got to take that risk, but you're taking a risk with not just yourself. My son is a single guy, and he's making a lot of money, and he's saving his money, and he doesn't have any responsibilities. Right? He's got to pay a little bit of rent. He just bought a Tesla 2 months ago, cash, so he has no car payment. Like he's living the dream as a 25-year-old, but he has no responsibilities, so he can make life changes. And I've told him this, dude. You can do any like he works remote 100% of the time, right? I'm like, you could travel the world and still do your job and have a blast. Like you could do those sorts of things. You have no responsibility. You could change jobs at 25 and still not worry about it because you have a lot of money saved up in the bank and all these kinds of things, right? You are different, Brian. I am different. We have a family to worry about. We have insurance to worry about. We have a roof over our head to worry about. How scary was that for you? And what lessons did you and Nicole and your kids learn from that?
And it goes back to the priorities, what we just talked about is during that season, I recognized what was a priority. And for most of my career, I was in corporate America, the biggest bank at Wells Fargo for 13 years. And I recognized I was always just trading up. Like my next move was always, I was indoctrinated under, you're going to move up and take your boss's role. They're going to retire. They're going to get promoted. That's how you move up through the organizations. And you just kept going title chasing and you kept going after more and more and more. And what that taught me was, one, I need to get better. Two, go deeper. And I started to really assess myself. Like, what am I passionate? What gifts has God given me? And I realized, man, I am phenomenal at team building. Like I don't say that lightly, and I don't mean that arrogantly either. It's just from my sports days, there is a love of people and their personal development and growth that is like, it's just a seed I recognize when I started having conversations with people and my coach. I realized people aren't wired like me.
Mm,
Not everybody wants to do that. And I
mm,
like to put people in seats that they can win and succeed. And I see things in them that, Brian, most of the time they don't even see in themselves.
mm.
And so I was looking back over this and my coach was like, Brian, you have helped like over 20, almost 30 people get promoted or take on bigger responsibilities, grow bigger teams than they've ever grown before. He's like, that is not normal. I thought that was normal. And so why I share all that with you is most of the time we don't slow down enough to actually recognize what are we great at?
Mhm.
What has God given us unique experiences, opportunities in that we say, I want to do more of that. And I started to realize, Brian, that there was this disconnect of I was waking up and I was taking these phone calls that I didn't want from certain people on my team. And I'm not saying I didn't want to do the work. It was just, I was getting to a point where there were people in that structure that I said, you know what? I don't want more people. I
Mm,
want fewer people that I can impact and have deeper relationships with and help their health and fitness, help them in their marriage and as a parent, help them in their investment strategies and tax strategies. Like I wanted to shepherd people through seasons I had been through. I was like, that's not the corporate America philosophy. It is check in, make us a lot of money. Thank you. But guess what? You're replaceable.
right.
And I had this vision of what if I went somewhere that I could actually use these skills and I could coach people, I could attract the right people and I could build it. Would anybody even want it? And so I went down this path, Brian, of one, I was going to do my own thing. So I'm like, well, nobody knows how to do it like I do. Well, that's not true. Two, I started just to be open to conversations. And I realized very quickly what I didn't want. And I remember this exercise with my coach. I wrote down all the things I didn't want, which very quickly eliminated options and people that were talking to me about, hey, do you want to do
Mm,
this? Even staying at Loan Depot, it was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Then that allowed me for the very few things that I said, okay, these are my absolutes, the yeses. This is what I want to do going forward. And I even had this moment where I'm like, man, do I stay in the mortgage business? Like I've been doing it 20 years. Like, is God calling me to go do something? Like, what does this look like? And here's the biggest thing I realized. If anybody's listening going through this season, is one, yes, I've done this for 20 plus years and there is a place for me and I found it, right? And so I'm helping build out Revolution Mortgage and that's worked out exceptionally well. We've doubled the company, a lot of fun. But I also found these outlets for my passions of the podcast, speaking more, coaching more. And I realized when I got better at certain things that I wasn't good at my time management, saying yes to things, no to things, when I got better at all that, they all started to feed each other and they started to flow together. And then I hired a couple people on the team to say, hey, will you take this off my plate? Because again, I thought I was the only one that could do it. And then I realized invest. And today, with everything from virtual assistants, the AI technology,
Mhm.
things we have, like there's so many things to take out copywriting and video editing and just wasted hours that we used to pay a lot of money for. We started to get really clear in our process and where I want to go. So I just give people a framework of if you have this desire, it doesn't always mean that you have to leave completely and go start this brand new thing. I actually found this beautiful synergy and harmony between I'm going to help build out this mortgage company. We have a vision of $10 billion a year in mortgages, and I'm going to do some of these other things. And I think they perfectly marry together. And being a dad and being married to Nicole and I 22 years this year, like doing all that together makes me a better Brian. And so I think that's what most people, we just compartmentalize it so much. And I
Mm.
started to just wonder, what if I go do this?
Yeah.
And
That's
what a cool journey it's been. Ups and
and
downs, my friend, ups and downs for sure.
I'm sure, and and that kind of journey requires a lot more of your time, and trying to figure that out with balancing, your relationship with Nicole. It's amazing to me because, as we've talked about before, you and I are social media friends, so I see all the stuff that you're doing. You and Nicole and your date nights, which is really important, right? And then you guys are really good about family activities, family things, family times together. So you do various, small trips, weekend trips, whatever with the family. And then you have their sports and all that kind of stuff that you're staying on top of with them as well. Everybody sees how great people's lives are, right? On social media. Everybody sees all the awesome things that they're going through. And by appearance, you are doing those things. You're living that kind of lifestyle, that kind of dream, right? But what's the struggle? Where's the struggle at? What are the struggles that people aren't seeing that you, Brian, are trying to work through, not only as a husband, but as a business owner and a dad?
Yeah, the best thing I'm learning this season is I've had to continually say no to more things
Mm.
than I really want to. And that for me, being somebody that likes to people please, I like to take care of my friends. Like when people ask me to go, like this week I was asked to go speak in my alma mater at University of Memphis, right? And they're like, hey, we want you to come speak to the team before the game Wednesday night. I just can't be there. And that for me is still this rub and tension of I want to be there. That
Right.
could further my career. Like that helps me in the speaking side. And it's like, it's my old team and it's like my friends and I want to go do that. And part of the ego goes, Ryan, how cool would that be? And I go, well, we've got soccer that night and Nicole and I go to Henry's soccer and we usually walk and talk. And that's kind of our thing that nobody's around. We just get to walk and talk. And I started thinking, well, I got to do that. Well, that means I've got to then that saying yes to that one thing. What I realized, Brian, is I had to say no to too many other things. Is there was 4 or 5 things I would have to say no to. And when I start to put it on for me, just my scale, it doesn't outweigh the things of me being home with the kids, doesn't outweigh me being there in the morning. It didn't add up. And so I'm working through that in the season. And it's also the same thing with speaking. I know you get this with people you run with and yourself is there's so many opportunities that I've said no to.
Mhm.
And I often wonder, well, where would I be if I did say yes to it? And that what if will kill you if you start to go, well, I got to go do this and I got to go do that. And I just stopped, man. And it has become a bit of freedom. I've just said no to these things. Hey guys, that just doesn't fit in what I'm doing right now. And so what I've been working on this year, in addition to that, was some crazy goals that most people are like, yeah, they see the social media stuff and where I get to and all that. But if you were to see the inner battles and struggles of me not wanting to go do the long runs, which I know you'll get, the times when it's like, I want to go do that right now. Like I would rather just sit down and chill. I'd rather just sit
Mhm.
down on the couch, watch TV. But even yesterday, it was like, hey, are you showing up as a dad? Like you went and got your run. Now your son wants to go bike ride, wants to go work out later. Those are the things that I think we have to be constantly aware of the patterns that are happening. And
Mhm.
so, man, would I love for our mortgage team to be going faster? Yeah, I would. Would I love for some of the things in my speaking career to be going faster and happening? Yeah. But there's a standard and there's things that I think when we start to measure ourselves, again, this is taking us full circle. What really matters? And our oldest is a senior. And so I'm
Wow.
making sure she is like getting the time and attention. And I don't see her as much anymore. And so waking up in the mornings when she comes home at night and like doing those things. I'll tell you, I had this kind of self-talk yesterday, Brian. I don't know if you ever have this, but I'm on my run yesterday, longer run for me, right? 7 miles. And
I did that
I'm
this
like,
morning.
yeah, dude, you do that. You just like crush through those. And for me, it gives me time. Like that's my time, like talking to God. Like I'm just talking, and I feel like we have these conversations and I'm going, is it enough?
Mm.
Am I doing enough in certain areas? And, that quote, I think the guy's Louis, whatever. I don't know his name. I'll mess it up, but he's talking about, average people think they're doing enough and wonder why they're not getting ahead. And, elite performers or top performers, how he classifies them, are doing all this extra and you just wonder if it's enough. And I struggle with that as like, am I doing enough, man? Like,
Mm.
and how do you measure that? My coach and I, we work on this all the time is, am I doing enough? I don't know that any of us have the right answer for that, but I will tell you one thing that's helped me through this season is clear and measurable goals. And I use 90-day sprints. And
Hmm.
then I back in and reverse engineer everything into a weekly and daily
Hmm.
type of accountability, whether it's my sales calls, whether it's recruiting activities, whether it's the revenue we're generating, whether it's our rental properties that we own. Like, I mean, into all it, you talked about like date nights, family time, doing things, reverse engineer it all and have
Hmm.
a scoreboard to where some days you're going to get more done in certain categories than others. And some days it's going to flip flop and you're like, man, I didn't get the fitness stuff done, but I got more time with my family.
Hmm.
And I'm coming to a place of peace about not every day is going to look like the one before. But what are my standards? Ben Newman's one of my favorite guys and
Yeah, I
coaches
love
that,
Ben. He's awesome.
dude, I was rereading this and we were talking about standards the other day. And he's like, you just have to be so clear on when you're in that moment, how you show up. And I started to think about how am I showing up in this moment? How am I showing up in that moment? And I do believe when you do that, it might be 5 or 10 minutes with your kids before they go to school. But if you're fully present, not on your phone, not watching TV, not doing this, those 5 or 10 minutes can be better than 30 minutes where you're both just sitting there scrolling.
Right.
And man, I'm working through that stuff right now. And that's everybody is like, we're in a good season. Nicole and I'll be married 22 years. And the conversations we're having now are very different. Of one's going to college and one's going to be a junior next year. And one's in third grade. And it's like, what do we want to do in this next season? Have the conversations with yourself, with your coach, and with your spouse.
Yeah.
Because I found when you're on the same page, going the same way, things tend to work out. When you don't have those conversations, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
No, you know what? I'm going to encourage you, Brian, and this is not only for you, but this is for all my listeners, viewers, and all that. But when you're at a place where you want to know, am I doing enough? One of the first individuals that you should ask is if you're a religious person, is your God. Ask God, am I doing enough? And sit quietly in that and allow Him to help you figure it out. And He'll tell you if you're doing enough or not. The next person you can ask is your spouse. Say, hey, look, I'll go to my wife and say, Andrea, am I doing enough for us? And most spouses should be completely honest with you, and they'll be, some will be very blunt. No, you're not. So you need to step it up a little bit. And the next thing you can do is go to your kids. It doesn't matter if they're 4 or 30. Go to your kids and say, am I doing enough as a dad for you? And I think particularly for you, Brian, having a daughter that's about to go off to college, a senior in high school, one of the things that I did with both of my boys when they were seniors in high schools is I used to every month, you probably do this already, but every month I would take one of them out and we would sit down at a dinner and just talk. And what we talked about was not how things were going, but how things are gonna go. And like life lessons, life things about how to live on their own in college and the things that they should watch out for and what they're looking forward to. So we did that once a month. And it was my way of making sure not only was I comfortable with them going off and being this independent person by themselves, maybe in another state, but they were comfortable with doing it as well. And they weren't going to be scared or, all that kind of stuff because they left home. So you going to your daughter and saying, listen, am I doing enough for you? Because you're about to go off and live a beautiful life, living your dream, doing the things you want to do in college. and I need to make sure that I'm doing enough for you. So if there's something that I need to do or something that I need to improve on, I want you to be honest and tell me. Even if you think it might hurt my feelings, I want you to be honest and tell me, and allow her to do that, because you might be surprised. There might be something you learn that you didn't realize. So
Love that.
that's for any parent out there that might be going through it. Listen, I mean, I encourage my dads, the ones that I coach and stuff, is just say, hey, ask your kids how you can be better as a dad. I mean, plain and
Yes.
simple.
They'll tell you.
They come to me and go, Brian, how do I be better as a dad? And I go ask your kids. What are you asking me for? I don't know your
Yeah.
family. Go ask your kids, and they'll tell you. So yeah.
So true.
Anyways,
Because each kid's going to want something different. I found that with our three and, other kids, it's like, what they value as far as quality time or relationship, needs. You ask them and they're like, yeah, I want more of this. Like our three are so wired differently on
right.
that, to where it's like, oh man, this one wants to do that one. This one, that's what quality time means. This one, that's what that means. And you're like, get to know it. So I
Right.
love that. I'm going to use that and ask. And I will share this with people going through it. Our senior, what we've realized is we thought we taught her a lot about money management and different
Mhm.
things and, all that. And she even had more questions because I asked her something similar to that. She's like, I don't have a budget. And I'm not, how much am I spending? How much should I be spending here? And like, how much, should I allocate for this? And how much does my car insurance cost? And all these things. I'm like, hey, let's pull back the curtain. Let me share everything that's going on with you. And you just ask away, right? I want you to understand like everything from our house, mortgage, your car, the insurance, like all these things. Let's prepare you for what it is. Food budget, right? And like you get to college, what does that look like? How do you review it? Here's how I review our finances. And man, I love that, Brian. So I'm going to use that again because there's probably other areas that they would share with me. Yeah, I want to know more about that. Or I want more of this from you.
Yeah.
And don't know until you
Yep.
ask. It's like a leader, a
Yep.
team.
You got to
Ask.
ask for sure. And like I said, you might be very surprised at the response she gives you. And maybe there's nothing that you need to do. Maybe you're just knocking it out of the park, and you probably are. But there's probably going to be one or two things that she would like from you. So I would highly encourage you to ask. But you are now in this phase of life where you're really taking off in your things speaking wise. I know that you've written a book. What's new for you as far as what's upcoming for you that you're really looking forward to, not only on the business side, but also with your family as well? I mean, obviously your daughter getting ready to go off to college, but what's new for you? What's coming up for you?
I'll say what I've been learning the past 4 or 5 years, since we really dug in, is we hired a team to help us with tax strategies. And so I'll get real tactical with people. Is through the years, like there were years I had good years, and there were years that I had not so good years and all that. And I started to realize for me, like I didn't understand some of the tax code and tax strategies. And even when I was more W-2'd than I am now, I didn't really have a diversified strategy. Like I had a 401k and 529s and basic stuff. So I started to really invest and learn about this. And why I share that is now I'm able to teach that to our kids. We diversified out, bought some rental properties, started more of kind of like a general partner and some investment stuff with apartments and some other things. And I've started to realize, Brian, this was something that nobody teaches you in school.
Right.
I have transferable skills. I have an ability to connect with people, ask questions, solve problems. My network of people can solve problems. And I started to realize I have this value in the market that I had always been trading my time for money. So I started to learn this concept that unfortunately took me a lot longer than some people, but I go, well, at least I'm figuring out now. Well, I share all that because now I'm sharing that with my kids. And I have started to use that when I'm teaching or coaching other people. And as we build our mortgage team, and that's now allowed me with our kids to share things with them and to set them up for their future and some things for Nicole and I for, what does that next season look like for us? Where do we want to live? What do we want to do? And the optionality of what's there. And for anybody out there that's still in that phase of trading time for money, you haven't really diversified out, I would encourage you to seek wisdom and counsel around this and get people in your life that are actually on your team. When I started to do that, again, it's going, I don't know this yet. Who knows the information and can help me get to that point? What has that allowed me to do? More time with my family. We have a place in Orlando that we're going here in fall break, and our kids are going on a cruise next year, and all of a sudden they're going to stay in the house. And I go, now I can give this out to people. I can use it for auctions, right? And we've auctioned it off to schools and things like. I just think about like God's uniquely gifted you with these things. I wasn't playing big enough yet. And so what I'm learning is all these things go together. And then there's a way to actually create this life where you're like, I love doing this
Mm.
and I love doing this. Like, how do these things work together? And so I'm excited about, there's a couple things coming up with our kids of, Presley is our senior, her getting ready for this last year and working through it in college. And then we've got our youngest, we're planning a trip to the Netherlands for soccer next year.
That's cool.
And dude, a few years ago, I would never have done it. I would be like, no way, we're not doing it. It's too expensive, or, we're not going to go. He's too young, like all the things. And I remember Nicole and I were talking. She's like, you work hard and you do these things, and you're saving money and doing all that, so we can do those things. And I remember just that shift of more vacations with the family has become a focus of ours the last 4 years, and intentionally looking and going, these are investments in their memories and their development, our time versus how much is that going to cost again?
Right.
And that mindset shift. And so to me, those all went together as I had to change my relationship with money and time and just how I viewed why I'm here, what my purpose is. And so, dude, I'm super excited about the future, because what's crazy is when you unlock a new level, you realize there's another level, but you can't get there. It's almost like the iPhone 1 didn't become the iPhone 15, right? Like, it didn't just jump. There were all these different versions that happen. And so I invite you to consider, what's the next version for you? What is God teaching you in that season, so that then you can move forward and serve the person you once were. And now, this, you do this all the time. I see it. You're then able to help people. You were in their spot just like they are. And I go, okay, that's what you're teaching me. Now I'm going to pay that forward. So
Right.
I'm excited, bro. It's, every day is a new day. Doesn't mean it doesn't come with challenges and struggles and frustrations and things that are there. But I look and go, God, who have you put in front of me today that I can serve? How am I showing up? And I always think about this as like, we're going to compete every day. I'm going to compete, show my kids what's possible, because my parents sacrificed a lot to get me to where I am. And I go, it's my responsibility now to take our name and our heritage and legacy now and take that forward.
Mm. So good. I'm super proud of you, man. I'm super proud of the things that you're doing. You certainly, I've told you this many times, but you really are just a stud of a dad and stud of a husband. I mean, you really step up in all those areas, and look at you as a business leader, and trying to really grow your business is massively something that you should be proud of, for sure. So really, really cool. And yeah, I agree. Those family trips that you guys are really focusing on, it's those memories. That's what you're trying to create, because your kids are only kids for so many years, and then they're off and doing their own thing, and then what, right? You get to
That's right.
look forward to the empty nester part, right? Andrea and I look forward to the empty nester part. But at the same time, my older son, we're in California. My older son lives in Arizona, and he lives with his best friend. He's got a girlfriend out there and all that. But we miss him and want him to be near us. But we know he loves life right now and he's doing well, and that's okay. But Andrea and I still like to have our house to ourselves. It's great,
Yeah.
but we have to make sure that we're continuing to create those memories. So when we do go to Arizona and visit with him, or he comes home, we're always doing something to create some sort of memory. He's coming home in a couple weeks, and we're making sure that we're having all our local family around here come over to our house for we're gonna have a barbecue and all that kind of stuff, so they could see him, and so we can all hang out. That's another way of us creating that memory, since he's going to be in town. So constantly making memories is important, because your kids are only kids for so many years, and then it's a whole different avenue that you got to
Yeah.
go down.
Different ball game.
Yeah. Well, listen, Brian, thank you, man. Thank you so much for being on the show again. And I really, really enjoy our friendship, and continue to look forward to continuing our friendship. And one of these days, it's going to happen. One of these days, you and I are going to meet in person. We're going to be able to break some bread together. But I appreciate you being on the show, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me, and just want to honor you, because what you're doing in this mission has taken off, and what I've seen, and I know God has huge plans for you, because I see what you're doing and like all the discipline and what you're doing, being an example for other dads. Just don't think it ever doesn't go noticed. Sometimes people don't acknowledge it, but I always say you're setting the example and the standard for this dad that we envision, that shows up for their family and their business and their faith and everything. And so you're embodying that, and it inspires me, because I go, you think about, you get great dads around you, you gravitate towards that. And so thank you for leading that charge.
Oh man, I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. Well, thank you very much. Listen, guys, it's been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend again, Brian Covey, for being on. If you want to check out what he's doing, see a little bit more about what he's doing, I have all his links in my show notes. Trust me, he's very active on social media. You've got questions, whether it's with mortgages or business or family, you want to ask him a question, he will certainly respond to you. Unless you ask him a weird question, he's not going to respond to that. But he is certainly active on social media. He's on Instagram. He's on all the channels. So I'll make sure that all his links are in my show notes. And if you have not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.